Welcome back to Open Line tonight. Thank you for joining us. Tonight's topic is human trafficking, and believe it or not, it is happening right here in our state, right here in our city, and of course across the globe. If you want to know exactly what human trafficking is, if you have a comment about it, a question about it, tonight's the night to call. I have Gabrielle Thompson here with me, the CEO and Executive Director of Free for Life International. She's a wealth of information, so if you've got questions, we've got answers. 615-737-PLUS is the number to call. The lines are open, so go ahead and have your way with it. We've talked a lot about what human trafficking is and the definition of it, and we will go back to that because I just think it takes a little while for folks to really let it sink in. But I want to talk about victims. Who are the typical victims? Is there a typical victim?
That's a great question, and really a lot of what we do is bring education about the fact that a victim can be anyone. It can be really any individual from any socioeconomic status, any race, any gender. It can come from any background, and that's the tragic part about human trafficking, is that it can actually entrap any human, any person. And I think that all of us can remember a time in our lives where maybe we were manipulated by someone, or we were coerced by someone towards something. And that is exactly how human trafficking happens. And so we need to realize that these victims, especially the ones that are children and the ones that are young women, are being so severely coerced into this, and it can really be any person. And that's what's been shocking as well, is some of the stories of survivors that we've encountered, especially in the United States, you know, may have come from families that were incredibly loving and unfortunately were lured into a situation that they were not aware of, that is human trafficking. And so to really recognize that it's not people from poor communities, it's not just those individuals at all.
On the flip side of that, tell me about the typical trafficker.
The typical trafficker is actually the same type of story. A trafficker can also be anyone, and I want to also emphasize that a trafficker can be a woman. You know, I think a lot of people think that a trafficker is only one type of really angry, aggressive man, and that is not the case. When it comes to luring and coercion, women can be very convincing within that. And so we've seen a lot of female traffickers lately, and actually one of our most successful cases that we ever convicted a trafficker was a woman, and she got 40 years in India, and she actually trafficked her daughter, her sister, and her niece. Oh my goodness. And so really, women can be traffickers, men can be traffickers, young women can be traffickers, old men can be traffickers. It ranges across the board.
And part of the equation is then the person asking for the business, asking for the service.
The buyer.
Yeah.
We call an individual that, and I'm specifically talking about sex trafficking. Now, I want to go back for a second and just mention again that within trafficking, it is such it is the country and the world's largest, second largest criminal enterprise. Wow. It grosses over $150 billion a year, which is more than the combined income of Starbucks, Nike, and Google together.
That really puts it in perspective.
Yes, and so because of that, there's a lot of money there. Yeah. And the only individuals that are within that, it's because a person is used as a commodity. They can be used over and over and over and over again. And so a buyer, we only see, and then we call it a John. That's only in regards to sex trafficking. And it's really fascinating. So there was a study that came out that looked at, in 2016, that looked at Johns that had been convicted of both minor and adult trafficking, of purchasing sex from them. And the demographics of these men, the average was 49 years old, made an average income of $142,000, and 60% of them were married. Wow. And so it is wealthy, at least in the United States, men that are buyers of sex trafficking are oftentimes wealthy Caucasian men that are educated with families. And so we need to break the misconceptions about who is a victim, who is a trafficker, but also who is a buyer and who is a John. This is all a part of recognizing the reality of human trafficking.
And why it continues to grow when you have that kind of buyer. Let's jump to the lines. This is what it's about. It's Open Line. Robert, you're on the line. What's your question or comment tonight?
Hi, I'm Robert from Donaldson.
Hi, Robert.
And first of all, hi. First of all, I want to thank Gabrielle for her work and her organization to help this egregious situation. And but I was wondering, I know there's other human trafficking or sex trafficking organizations out there doing work too. And I was just wondering, I'm glad one's based here in the Nashville area, and I was just wondering, what does Free for Life do, I guess specifically that's unique, or what's their niche
Sure.
in this world of prevention and care and restoration? And
Great call. Thank you. Great question, Robert. We appreciate it. Yeah, what makes you guys different?
Well, first I want to say thank you, Robert. That's a fantastic question. And a few things make us different. First of all, as I mentioned previously, we focus on the full spectrum of the human trafficking story. So we're not just doing rescue. We are doing prevention to bring freedom to future generations, to stop this crime from happening, rescue of those that are trafficked, healing to those that have been trafficked and rescued, but then also bringing true skills training and sustainability to those that have been trafficked to really help them have a future past their trafficking. But within that, we also create all of our programs based on what is not being done. What is the need that is not being met? So for example, with both our scholarship program and our prevention education, the reason that we created those programs was because we recognized that there was a gap in the prevention of foster children and orphans around the globe. They were the ones being trafficked. Well, why isn't there a way to prevent them from being trafficked and educating those individuals? We created that. We looked at a scholarship program. Why isn't there a scholarship program or a program for women after they've been trafficked besides just shelters? You know, thank you to the organizations that are providing shelters, but what are we doing after they get out of that healing and providing that for them? And so that is really, we create our programs in a very unique way that covers all areas, but also looks at where are the gaps in the anti-trafficking sector.
So you're doing a lot of the rescue, kind of rehabbing, and then giving someone wings to kind of go on.
We want to see survivors soar. That is so important to us.
And with your organization and others that operate in Tennessee, a good ranking for Tennessee. We don't often end up on the good list and high on the good list, but tell me about that.
So there is an organization called Shared Hope International, and they basically come out, they're a resource to all anti-trafficking organizations. They come out with a thing called a report card for every single state within the country. And when the 2018 rating came out, and this is to look at all of our anti-trafficking provisions, in criminally and really specifically looking at minors and how are we treating cases of minor trafficking. Now and this is something we were so proud of in the anti-trafficking community, we got the highest rating in the entire country.
Wow.
And we are absolutely so proud of that. There are only 10 states that got an A, and we are one, but we got top rating.
So what do you attribute that to?
Well, personally, I attribute it to the fact, and this has been a challenge within, I think, in any nonprofits, is that it's very hard to have collaboration. Right? There, unfortunately, can be competition within the nonprofit sector, but I and all the other anti-trafficking communities within Middle Tennessee, we have worked very closely together to come together to say, let's leave all that behind, and we want to serve survivors. We want to end human trafficking. Let's come together. That made us 1,000,000 times stronger, and now we are a model to other states around the nation. They are being more encouraged to have collaboration because of the fact that after we did that, we got that incredibly high rating.
And I've even noticed, you know, I've been in this profession for 20+ years, and I have noticed from the time that I started and working on the crime beat to now and talking with officers and troopers, no one used to talk about trafficking. Nobody did 20 years ago. And now it is a common topic among our police officers. They are always looking for this.
Yes, and actually that is one part of how we got our rating. We require officers to be trained in child sexual abuse, but also human trafficking.
And they are always, whether they're doing a traffic stop or what have you, they're looking for those signs and signals.
Yes, and actually there was a story, and I can't remember if it was in the state of Tennessee, but it was about an officer that pulled over a car for speeding. But actually he, from his training, recognized that it was trafficking by what was going on within the vehicle and actually helped free the victims that were inside of that car.
Which is amazing.
It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, the trooper I was talking to last week just said, we look for people who won't make eye contact, who are not being allowed to talk. We'll try to separate them and, you know, have that conversation aside and really know the questions to ask that may give the red flags, because like you said before, as a layperson, you don't want to go to the person that's sending off those red flags and say, are you being trafficked? It could put them in a lot of danger.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that people may think, oh, I'm just going to go say something, this will help them. That actually puts them in danger that could lead to severe abuse by their trafficker. It is best to not intercept an individual that you think is being trafficked, but to contact the human trafficking hotline and authorities to mention that.
And they're likely not to tell you know, me, Joe Schmo.
No.
Yep, you got me. I'm being trafficked. Help me.
They don't have trust for anyone anymore.
No, it makes sense. Okay, we have to take another quick break. When we come back, more of your calls, questions, and more conversation about human trafficking so we can all understand it better. Stay with us.